Hi, this is Privateer Station, and today we're bringing you another special. This is a weekly review by Popular Politics. These are Navalny guys who are doing reviews and other investigative materials. This one is called Martial Law and is done weekly by military observer Yan Matveyev, and it goes out on Navalny Live. This one is also brought to you courtesy of N. Enjoy.
Hello everyone, I'm Yan Matveyev, and this is the Military Situation Program. Today, we'll discuss the development of the battle for Bakhmut. There have been significant changes there. We'll evaluate losses and, of course, talk about fresh weapon supplies. We'll also review the events in Russia, discuss the fate of the Mobilized and new repressions. But first, I'll remind you that the easiest way to help us to tell the truth is to like this video. Do it right now, and we'll begin. The most prominent news of the week was the execution of a Ukrainian prisoner. Let's recall. A video appeared in which a Ukrainian soldier says "Glory to Ukraine," and in response, he is shot with a rifle, obviously by the Russian military personnel. It is already known where this took place, near Solidar. It is very likely that the Wagner private military group carried out the execution. The shooting is, of course, a war crime. We should not be mistaken. Even under the Russian law, any form of the death penalty is prohibited, including during wartime. Judging by the way the murder was carried out, the shooters were ready for it and did not hesitate. They probably did this not for the first time, meaning it was not a random occurrence. The victim who became a symbol of courage is Alexander Matseyevsky, a sniper from the 163rd Battalion of the city of Nizhin in the Chernigov region. His body was returned before the video's appearance, and he was buried on February 14th. Ukraine Security Service has launched an open investigation under the Article 438 of the Criminal Code for violation of the laws and customs of war. I am confident that, like other war crimes, this will be investigated to the end, and the specific perpetrators will be found and brought to justice. Now let's see what's happening on the front. This week, Russian troops continued to storm the city of Mariinka, using the same tactics of gradually destroying positions with direct tank fire. But even completely destroyed, Mariinka still resists the Russian forces. Video from a Ukrainian soldier. This is the city center of Mariinka. We are holding positions, although there is destruction everywhere. But this is nothing. We are not complaining. Russian forces are not taking any serious new actions around Ugledar, but continue shelling, including with incendiary shells. Beautiful. It hasn't hit us. However, the most important events occurred, of course, in Bakhmut and its suburbs. Let's take a look. At the northern outskirts, Wagner was able to advance further in these directions, even closer to the village of Khromovo. Here's the settlement of Dubovo-Vasilievka. In this video, Wagner claims its capture. Today, March 8th, we, the Wagner Group, fully liberated the settlement of Dubovo-Vasilievka. Besides, Wagner penetrated Zobakhmutovka, which is on the eastern bank of the Bakhmutka River. This district is where Prigozhin filmed a video near the monument with a T-34 tank, meaning there were no active battles there and it was relatively safe. Various Russian propagandists filmed videos while walking around neighborhoods somewhere in the middle of the week. This means that Wagner was able to push back the Ukrainian troops a little further. In addition, attacks are currently taking place from the north to here in the Ozol plant's industrial zone. Analysts also point out that fighting is going on in the direction of Ivanovsky, where the monument to the MiG-17 aircraft is located. But of course, the Ukrainians continue to resist. Let me show you roughly where their positions are now. They are defending this part and have built a front along the Bakhmutka River and are fighting for the Azov industrial zone. They're also holding off attacks in the areas of Kromovo, Bogdanovka, and Ivanovsky, because important roads run through there. For example, there is a Ukrainian video from Bakhmut that shows they are still in control of the southern part of the city as of March 10th. In the south of Bakhmut, the monument to the MiG-17 aircraft, which became famous, was destroyed. Earlier it stood here, but now it is gone. Apparently, Wagner did not like that Ukrainian soldiers often filmed themselves near the monument and made patriotic videos, so Wagner decided to destroy it, most likely with artillery. Despite significant losses on both sides, the armies continue to battle in Bakhmut, and the Ukrainian army has not left the city. We will talk about the cost of the battle, especially for Wagner soldiers, in the next block. According to Sergei Shoigu, Russian Minister of Defense, the losses of the Ukrainian army in February increased by 40% and amounted to more than 11,000. Shoigu also emphasized that Bakhmut is an important defense hub in the Donbass, so the Russian army will continue to try to liberate it, as Shoigu phrases it. Shoigu, of course, did not speak about the Russian losses. I'm sure he has no idea how many, for example, mercenaries were killed near Bakhmut. According to NATO intelligence estimates, for every Ukrainian soldier killed there, there are no fewer than 5 losses of Russian forces. A Guardian journalist reported on his Twitter account that according to their data, the Russian army lost between 20,000 and 30,000 people throughout the entire period of the fighting near Bakhmut, making this battle the bloodiest of the war. In total, the names of 16,674 deceased Russian military personnel have been identified. The number continues to increase. Only in the last 2 weeks, reports have been found of the deaths of 1,638 people. The largest number of burials is in the Urals, in the Sverdlovsk and Chelyabinsk regions, Bashkortostan, Buryatia, and Dagestan. Right now, this is largely connected to the large number of mobilized troops from the Urals regions. This week, another prisoner exchange took place, and it was quite large. 130 Ukrainian and 90 Russian soldiers returned home. More than half of the released Ukrainians are members of the Azov battalion. But there are also those who were captured relatively recently near Bakhmut and Solidar. There was no clarification about the specific military personnel who returned to Russia. Judging by the age of some of the people in the video, they could be volunteers or mercenaries from the Wagner group. Overall, there have been 38 exchanges between the two sides over the past year. Some of them were announced publicly, while others were hidden. More than 3,000 prisoners from both sides have been released. As we can see from these statistics, exchanges usually favor the Ukrainian army, as they manage to negotiate for more people. However, the Russian army is not as dependent on people as it is on equipment. Over the 380 days of the war, the Russian army has lost 1,835 tanks, 3,339 armored vehicles, including BMPs, BMDs, BTRs. 542 artillery guns and self-propelled artillery systems have been destroyed or captured, as well as 180 multiple rocket launch systems. 77 planes and 79 helicopters were shot down. Losses of 40 more tanks have been confirmed this week. And I would like to remind you that the Russian industry can produce only 20 new tanks per month, approximately. By the way, a small T-90 tank was noticed in the train in Lipetsk in Russia. there were only 3 such tanks. In the Ukrainian army, as of March 11th, 474 tanks and 1,047 armored vehicles were destroyed. 233 artillery installations and 40 volley fire systems were lost. And the losses of 61 planes and 31 helicopters were confirmed. No European army has as many weaponry as has already been destroyed in the Ukrainian army. Deliveries of weapons remain a vulnerable spot. More equipment is needed, especially if we're going to prepare for a major counteroffensive. Another 10 Polish Leopard tanks were sent to Ukraine, and Norway is transferring 2 fully equipped air defense platoons, which means 6 or 8 installations. They will be very useful because on Thursday night, Ukraine got hit by another large rocket strike. Mainly energy facilities in 8 different regions were targeted. 34 out of 48 cruise missiles were shot down by air defense forces. In Kiev, there was a strike on a power plant, causing emergency shutdowns. In the Lvov region, a rocket fell in a residential area, killing 5 people and destroying 3 private houses. Even Russian propagandists did not report the destruction of military targets. The purpose of the shelling is clear. It's to terrorize the civilian population, as before. The winter is ending, and it's already clear that Ukraine is not going to freeze. And these senseless attacks are very similar to all other actions of the Russian army. Almost half a year ago, the decision was made to shell energy facilities, and Kremlin continues to do so without thinking why is it still necessary now. It does not affect the war, it only affects the lives of peaceful Ukrainians. But according to the UN, the number of civilian casualties has already reached 8,173 dead and 13,620 wounded. Wagner's chief, Prigozhin, is no longer allowed to recruit prisoners. Now the Ministry of Defense is handling this, and they are resorting to various tricks to somehow replenish the mercenary ranks. They will now be recruiting in sports clubs in various Russian cities, and the requirements for mercenaries have significantly decreased. Even medical certificates from psychiatrists and narcologists are no longer required for recruitment. I think you understand these recruits' careers will be very short-lived, usually ending in a few months or even weeks. This is illustrated by the cemetery near Moscow, where former prisoners who were members of Wagner are buried. Judging by the graves, nobody visits them. But Prigozhin wants to have as many of these cemeteries across Russia as possible. He is currently desperately looking for people in power who can support him and is complaining that his mercenaries are being denied ammunition. So that I stop asking for ammunition, they cut off all of my communication lines in all offices and units. Another important point is that they have blocked all my passes to all agencies that make decisions. I won't name them to avoid any possibility of discrediting them. It's possible that one of Prigozhin's patrons could be Igor Sechin, the head of Rosneft oil company. It was reported that he promised to sponsor some of Prigozhin's projects, but of course, this funding will come from the state budget, not his personal account. Let's continue. The governor of Russia's Belgorod region, on the border with Ukraine, reported this week that they have completed the razor wire line, as he calls it, a foolish line of anti-tank structures. It cost, hear this, 10 billion rubles, which were invested in these concrete pyramids instead of developing the region. The War Studies Institute has already said that this is a waste of money. Ukrainian military has repeatedly stated they are only interested in liberating Ukrainian territory, so there probably won't be any actual combat there. Similar fortifications are being constructed near Kursk in Russia. This razor wire line is just a way for the authorities to show that Russia is supposedly under threat, and of course to make money. I'm sure not even a tenth of that 10 billion was invested in those pyramids. The war in general has become an excuse for the Russian authorities to collect money from anyone, anywhere. For example, at a children's fair, craft goods made by sick children, including children with cancer, were sold, and the money went to Russian soldiers. In Uskansky, elderly and disabled people are forced to make camouflage nets and candles for trenches in their home for the disabled. There seems to be no limit to the awfulness. This week it was reported that doctors in St. Petersburg handed out military enlistment summons to male patients when they came for their appointments last fall. This happened at the clinic number 99, where Alexander Zagorodnikov is the head physician. By the way, he's also a deputy. Can you guess from which party? Of course, from Putin's United Russia party. This head physician forced employees to distribute summons and even to schedule appointments on purpose, so that patients could be given the summons. More than 100 summons were issued at the clinic, but some doctors intentionally went on vacation to avoid participating. Well, at least they did something. If you are forced to distribute summons at work, you can at least get sick, suddenly go on vacation, lose the summons, or do something else. Seems trivial, but it could save someone from death or participating in a war crime. And if you are given a summons somewhere, just don't take it. Tell them to go in the direction of the Russian military ship. Even if you don't care about others, the morals, and Ukraine, think at least about what awaits you there. And the fate that awaits you will be the same as that of the mobilized soldiers from Irkutsk, for example, who record one appeal after another. Our brigade serving in the Donetsk Republic is being sent to fight without any artillery or heavy machine guns. In short, we are sent to die in trenches without weapons or equipment, being under constant fire. The governor of Irkutsk even sent an investigative committee to the front. However, the committee reported that everything with those soldiers is going well and they will send humanitarian aid. So think about it. You will be on the front lines. Not only you will become war criminals, but you will sit in the trenches, dying under shelling, without weapons or supplies. And officials will debate whether to find humanitarian aid for you. If you think this is an isolated case, it's not. The Verska publication registered appeals from 16 regions in just 1 month, all about the mobilized men being sent into the battle without preparation, weapons, and they're often abandoned and not even fed. This is not combat-ready army, which is why there is no major attack by Russia. Meanwhile, in the Russian city of Chita, they want to install a monument to the heroes of the so-called special operation. They will spend 11 million rubles from the budget. To find out about the real attitude toward those who were sent to war, listen to a woman from the same Chita. She told what happened to her husband. After the last battle, he has serious injuries, such as a closed head injury, concussion, problems with the vestibular apparatus. He has only 10% vision left because of it. He was prescribed treatment at a hospital, but no one sent him there, and no one will. For the Russian authorities, people are nothing more than expendable material. And of course, this shameful criminal war cannot become popular, no matter how much propaganda tries. But it still tries. A fresh example is the same biker surgeon they dug up. Remember him? He's afraid to utter the word war. So this is how this insane speech construction was born. Listen. If the special military operation does not turn into the special great patriotic operation, we will fail. If Putin's special operation can be compared to World War II, then only in terms that it will also end in a demographic catastrophe. And it's already happening. The Economist magazine calculated that over the last 3 years, Russia has lost 2 million more people than usual, and the life expectancy of young men has decreased by 5 years. Now it's the same as, for example, in Haiti. And in Moscow and several other Russian regions, an alarm signal was sounded this week. If there are no cotton gauze bandages or potassium iodine pills, remain calm, and if your condition worsens, seek medical help at the nearest medical facility. In reality, there was no cause for alarm. Hackers just broke into the servers of several TV and radio stations. But in reality, the war has long since come to Russia. which is obvious without any sirens. For example, in the video from the Primorsk region, mobilized soldiers returned from the war, got drunk, and decided to shoot their guns in the center of the city. Fortunately, they were using blanks. In Stavropol, during a fight, a grenade exploded and 6 people were taken to the hospital. Fires continue to happen in Russia, and this is fresh footage from the Moscow region, where a plastic production plant caught fire today. The fire covered 5,000 square meters, roof collapsed. Fortunately, there were no casualties. Repressions are also continuing, of course. Dmitry Ivanov, the author of the Telegram channel Protest at Moscow State University, was sentenced to 8.5 years in prison for spreading fake news. In fact, he was punished for publishing anti-war posts. In Buryatia, local activist Natalia Filinova's adopted son was sent to a children's home. Natalia herself, a pensioner, has been in pre-trial detention since November, allegedly for beating a police officer during an anti-war rally with a ballpoint pen. Remember we covered this absurd story? Also, remember the story of the 6th grade student Masha Makalova, who drew an anti-war picture. They refused to release her from a children's home. Her father is currently under house arrest and has been accused of discrediting the army. This week, a petition was launched to bring Masha home. The link is in the description, and I urge you to sign it. I understand that petitions in themselves do not work in Russia, but it's a good way to draw attention to this entire situation. It's not difficult to sign, so please do it. See the link in the description. Let's summarize the week. The fighting for Bakhmut has now moved to the urban areas around the city. The front is being protected by the river Bakhmutka from the east. However, Wagner mercenaries are gradually penetrating into the city from the south and north. In addition, attempts to surround the city and cut off the roads continue. According to the Russian side, the roads through Khromovo and Ivanovskaya have already been cut off and are under heavy fire. All ground-level approaches to Bakhmut now seem to be completely impossible. It's very difficult now for the artillery to operate. It needs to constantly change positions, move through fields, and hide. And because of the spring thaw, the situation is difficult. The rest of the front is stable, and the Russian attacks in the north did not lead to anything significant, despite the propaganda claiming otherwise. This is how a Ukrainian soldier explains the attack in the north. Their actions do not seem rational. They just sent the armed vehicles to cross this field where they got stuck. They released the infantry. The infantry partially reached the target. Then Ukrainian reconnaissance service entered and started fire. There is now less likely that the Russian army will launch any major attacks. However, Ukraine is getting ready for it. The supplies of weapons are coming, crews are mastering new Western technology, and gradually NATO tanks arrive in Ukraine. The recent massive rocket attack on Ukraine showed that their anti-craft defense is already quite effective, and only by using hypersonic missiles such as Kinzhal did the Russian army achieve hits on infrastructure. But such missiles are few and expensive, and new American Patriots are coming to Ukraine, which is inspiring optimism. What to expect from the next week? There is probably going to be an escalation of the fighting around Bakhmut. It seems that the Wagner group feels more comfortable and are more used to fighting in urban areas than in open fields. But Ukrainian soldiers are also experienced in this matter. But it's probably not necessary to expect any major offensives from the Russian army at the moment, because they simply do not have the resources for it. And as for Ukraine, they're probably waiting for a more favorable weather and technical conditions for a major offensive. That was the week, and we were Ian Matveyev, Vladlen Lois, and our large team. If you liked the video, please like and leave a comment, and become our patron on Patreon. Thank you very much for all of our subscribers. Remember that each subscriber can send a couple of questions every week, and we'll answer them in the show, if there are not too many. Otherwise, we'll choose the most interesting questions. Subscribe. I'll say goodbye. See you soon.